Welcome to TEPSA Talk, the podcast where leaders inspire, share, and grow together. TEPSA is dedicated to celebrating the incredible work happening in education. Each episode, we dive into meaningful conversations with leaders, change-makers, and innovators who are shaping the future of our schools. Whether you're looking for fresh ideas, encouragement, or a little spark to fuel your passion, TEPSA Talk is here for you. Imagine tuning in to hear how leaders are revolutionizing their schools, tackling challenges head-on, and fostering a culture of collaboration. Grab a coffee, hit play, and let's grow together. Welcome to TEPSA Talk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TEPSA Talk podcast. I'm your host, Todd Neslony, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. We are thrilled every week to bring you different awesome people from around the world sharing their brilliance. And today we have a longtime friend of mine who is going to be joining us at the TEPSA Summer Conference this summer, leading her own masterclass. And that is the one and only Dr. Onica Mayers. Onica, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
If they don't know you already.
Thank you so much for having me, my favorite Todd Neslony in the world. I so appreciate you carving out some time for me. Thank you for having me.
So tell us about yourself.
So I am Onica Mayers. First and foremost, what defines me is that I am a mom. I am a mom to 3 teenage boys. So just think grocery bill, right? So I'm a mom to 3 teenage boys, and I will tell you that they have been the inspiration for the trajectory of my career, and they are my why, right? And so whenever I'm in a school, I'm in a building, I am talking to principals, I'm talking to leaders, I'm talking to teachers, I'm talking to students. I am always thinking about them. They're at the forefront of my thinking in every decision that I make. And truly, they're the reason why I'm so passionate about leading with joy. So currently, I am an associate superintendent here in Texas, and I get the awesome opportunity every day to lead 26 amazing principals, 24 elementary schools, and 2 early learning centers. And every single day, it is my desire to help support them in the important work that they're doing. And when we lead with joy, we know that we keep students at the forefront of our thinking. At the end of the day, they're the reason why we're doing what we're doing every day.
I love it. And so I love that you brought up the joy, because that's what our conversation is about today, leading with joy. And as you and I both know, it can be hard to find the joy right now in education, whether we're looking at things politically, locally, financially, behaviorally, it really doesn't matter. There's always things coming at us from all sides. So let's start with kind of defining that word joy. When you use the word joy, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So, I like to say there's a difference between joy and happiness, right? To me, happiness is kind of like, it's a little bit surface. And so happiness reminds me, when we think about putting it into context on our campuses, happiness reminds me about climate, right? That climate can change from day to day. The climate, we try to make sure we do all of those things. If we don't feed the teachers, they eat the students. So we bring in all the snacks and the treats, and we give them the jeans day and the warm up day and all those things. All of those things help with the climate. And that's the happiness of things, right? But when I think about joy, I think about culture. There's a difference there, because culture is really what is the fabric of who we are as a campus, and how do we sustain that? So as a leader, what is the culture that's cultivated even in your absence, right? And even when you leave, the legacy that's there after you leave, the joy that you bring in decision making helps to shape the culture of the campus. So we hear people use climate and culture sometimes interchangeably, but that's how I kind of like to designate the two, because when you lead with joy, you're really helping to shape the culture of your campus and to really develop that culture of excellence from what I call from the curb to the classroom, right? It encompasses everything that we do. And most importantly, it's how it shapes decisions that are made, so that we're making more than just data-driven decisions, but data-informed decisions.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you had so many things I want to dive into just in one little intro. So many good stuff, things there. But I love that idea of happiness is fleeting, joy is a much deeper, longer lasting thing that can weather the storm in different situations. So I love that kind of analogy you shared there. And so as we talk about this leading with joy, one of the things that you just mentioned was that idea of from the curb to the classroom, and that whole concept of we get a lot of data thrown our way. And we like to use different words like data informed, data decision, data driven, data whatever, all those things.
Yep.
And so you deal a lot with data, whether when you were a school administrator or even in the role you have now, being in a central office position, but working hands-on with administrators every day. How do you use that data to build up the joy when sometimes the data isn't very joyful?
Yeah.
Really use that to turn our mindsets around.
Sure. Yeah. So, my background is, of course, TEPSA's elementary, and that's my jam, right? I'm loving the little people. Nothing against the big people, but we get them ready for you, right?
Right,
so
right.
In the land of the little people, it's really important to celebrate the small wins. So even when I was a campus principal doing, some people say turnaround work, just doing the work, right? It was so important to, when you look at data, to find the joy in the data. What celebrations can you find, right? And so a lot of times, so even when in my work now with the principal team that I support, a lot of the times we say, oh, well, let's just kind of look at where third grade was last year and where third grade is this year. And I said, well, let's look at where third grade was last year and where those kids now in fourth grade are, right? So let's make sure we're looking at celebrating those small wins, even in terms of that vertical piece. So it's about looking at finding the joy in what is working, right? And using that to then leverage and then say, okay, what are the big rocks that I need to hang on to make bigger and more incremental growth? So I think what's really, really important is when we're talking about the challenges that we have in this educational landscape that we're in, we're working with people, right? And so for me, it's finding the joy because it's the people, not the processes, not the practices, not the policies. It's the people that make the difference. So if you can celebrate, look, we've been working on lesson internalization. And as a result, look at the growth that we've seen. Even here's the funny story. So we do our Excellence in Leadership Award, and we celebrate the wins at our principals meeting every month. And we just had a principals meeting on Thursday. And I was celebrating attendance and gains and growth, right? And I was just like, I'm a boy mom. I've got 3 teenage boys, and it's athletics all the time, right? And I say a win is a win. If we win by 1 point, whether it's for my boys who play basketball or my son who plays water polo, and we score that one extra goal and we win, a win is a win, even by 1, right? So I was telling them, you get back on the bus, you still got bragging rights. You still won, right? Even by 1 point. And so we were looking at attendance gains. And just with the political landscape and everything else, we've seen dips in our attendance, right? Just based on our student population. But we've had some campuses that had 0.1% growth. Well, we partied like it was 150% growth. Okay. And so it was like 0.1% growth. And we were like, okay, we'll take the 0.1%. And then there was one campus with 0.2%. Man, we hooped and hollered and raised the roof for that 0.2%. And so it's not just about like these big, huge gains, right? But what did that one campus do to get that little extra, right? You think about the 212 degrees, it's that little 1 degree extra on purpose. And so it's about learning and growing from each other as well and utilizing each other as a resource, but it's about really just finding those little pieces to lift up and to celebrate and say, okay, how can I apply this to what I'm doing, right? And so we have to learn to celebrate the people who are doing the work, because people are going to work harder when they have leaders who are celebrating them, who are recognizing them, who are valuing the work. And the work is hard. The work is hard, but it's so meaningful. So we've got to find those ways to lift up the students, lift up the staff, incentivize them. And it's that intrinsic desire, right? When you are willing to walk alongside them in the work, that's going to help bring the joy, and it's going to bring everybody along. We're working together for a common purpose and for a common good. And you have to be able to articulate that why. Okay. You have to be able to set that clear vision and that path for others to be able to come and follow you. Right. So as a leader, would you follow you? Right.
Yeah,
that's really important.
Exactly. Well, and I love that you just dive into that importance of celebrating even the littlest things. And I think we often hear that, but we forget it. Like we forget that little bitty 0.1%, that took work to get there. So it is worth celebrating. It may not be where we want to be at the end of the road, but who cares about that right now? We need to celebrate right now because of the fact that, like you said, we're getting beat down by all these other things. And if we don't celebrate those little things, it's hard to remember that you are making a difference in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And so what I would love to ask before we dive into a little bit of the masterclass preview is, I know that across the state and across the country right now, administrators feel worn out. They feel beaten down, and they may see this idea of joy as something that is far-fetched for them at this time. And so for those listening who may be just at the end of their rope in the position they're in, what advice would you give to them for even beginning to identify those joyful pieces?
Yeah. So here's what you do when those moments come. When those moments come, you go to a classroom. You go to pre-K, you go to kinder, you go to a special education classroom, and you sit with a student. And when the light bulb goes on for those kiddos, when you ask them, when I like to say, demonstration of learning for me is metacognition. Can students articulate, what they're learning and why, right? So you sit down next to that student, knee to knee, eye to eye, and you have that conversation. It just reminds you of the importance of what we're doing, because what we are actually doing is impacting generations unborn, right? And so it is so important for us to make sure that we model that resiliency, right? That whatever's happening, we leave it in the car. Somebody knows about that, a chapter in the book like that, right? And so it's so important for us as leaders to be the model, right? And if, like I said all the time as the principal, I know when the principal sneezes, the whole building catches the cold. Mm-hmm. So, in the 7 C's to building a winning team, John Gordon and Mike Smith, they talk about leaders are contagious. And so your contagious could be either positive or negative, right? Either way, it's going to have an impact. So what impact do you want to have? And so you have to dig deep sometimes and find the joy. But I'm telling you right now, it's with the kids. It's with the kids. The kids will give you that energy and that spark that you need. You'll have some conversation. You'll say, what do you really think about that? And they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Okay. I was just at a GT showcase with some kiddos, some second graders last week. And I'm telling you, after I walked out the building, I felt like, okay, like my shoulders went up a little bit better because they just remind you of why we're doing what we're doing. Just drown out the noise and put the kids first. And it really reminds you, it just levels the playing field for why it's important for us to continue to just motivate and inspire the adults that we're supporting so that they continue to motivate and inspire the kids. Because at the end of the day, they're who we're leaving it for, right? We want to leave it better than we found it. And it's the ones coming behind us that's going to be able to do that for us.
Well, I love that. And I love that you shared, like, even going to that GT thing and getting to see them do stuff. It just filled your bucket. It reminded me of, when I was an administrator, there, of course, as all of us, there's tons of things on our list, but I knew I needed to fill my bucket in a way. And I started coaching oral reading for UIL after school and going with them to the competition and seeing their excitement when they did this or that. It was so bucket filling for me that I was like, even though it was, quote unquote, one more thing on my plate, it really was feeding a piece of my soul that I needed fed, that helped remind me why I love doing the work that I do. So that was such a great example that you shared, Onica. And so, okay, as we close out today, as people have heard me say several times throughout this conversation, you are leading one of our 2.5-hour masterclasses at our TEPSA Summer Conference. Guys, we've got 7 of these going on over a variety of topics, but if I had to pick one of my top 2 or 3, Onica would be there because I just love her and her work so much. And your masterclass is about leading with joy and using that data in different ways and being that leader your team needs. And so if you were to give just a quick commercial to those listening of why they should come learn from you, what are you going to be covering?
Absolutely. So, when we talk about making data-informed decisions, people go, ugh, right? No. We can literally lead with joy, even when we have to look at data and make decisions, whether it is staffing decisions, how do we use our resources, how do we shape the culture of our campus, right? How do we deal with staff? How do we deal with students? How do we deal with parents, our community? All of that. But most importantly, what I want to be able to do is support the administrators in the room by giving them actionable, where you can just literally take it, turn and burn to go back to their campuses and meet with their instructional leadership teams, identify their highest leverage items that they need to work on, and have an action plan for how they do that by the time they leave our session. But knowing that no matter what it is, even if it's that you have to coach up or coach out, how do you shape that conversation so that you are still able to lead with joy, where that person still walks away from that conversation feeling a sense of dignity and a sense of worthiness, right? And so from A to Z, covering it all, I'm going to have the administrators in that room walking away with action steps in order for them to turn around and lead their campuses with joy to ensure that every single student walks out of their campus the next year maximizing his or her full potential.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I love hearing you speak. And so I can't wait for our members and attendees to learn from you. If you haven't already registered for a masterclass, you can still add it to your registration today. Just email us over at TEPSA and we'll make sure to get that added on for you. There are limited seats, so you want to make sure to grab your masterclass ticket before they sell out. Otherwise, thank you so much, Onica, for being a guest today. If people want to connect with you outside of this conversation, what's the easiest way for them to connect with you?
So definitely on X at O_L_Mayers is the best way to reach me, or email. People email me all the time at onica.mayers@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening to another conversation. We hope you join us again next week for another all